Yeah, good day. All right. Power and peace, family. Power and peace. Welcome back to Moments with Mila. We are about to have the show that everybody's been messaging us about happening, getting back on board, and we're so happy that we're able to do that. Definitely. Sister Crystal, how are you doing?
I'm grand, doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well. I am, you know what? I'm doing well. I have no complaints, none whatsoever. I am doing well. I'm going to speak it as we talked about, and that is what it's going to be. I am well. Oh, I see our guest backstage. Okay, I'm not going to do my dance, y'all. I'm not going to do it today. Okay. All right. I'm not going to do it. All right. So, tonight, family, Sister Crystal and I, are going to be, having the author and his beautiful compliment, Baba and Mama Baruti, on the book that I talk so much about. And before I bring them on, and the link is I think it's in the description, but if not, y'all know I'm gonna share it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And there's also a complimentary, like a notes book that I have to get for myself. Thank goodness Amun has it, but I need my own copy too. So this is what I wanted to do, family. Y'all know on this channel, we try to talk about topics that affect us Africans in relation to wellness. Mind, body, and spirit. Of course, I typically cover the physical wellness. That's my avenue. Sister Crystal is, as Baba Baruti affectionately named her, the frontline librarian, and trust me, she does it diligently. My sister is amazing. I love her dearly. I respect her highly, and I'm just so excited. I'm excited, for what's about to happen. So, without further ado, family, we're going to go ahead and bring on our guest tonight. So get ready.
Get ready.
Greetings.
Family.
Greetings.
Sound good?
What's that, Mama?
The sound good?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes. Flashback in the
I'm
last
putting
time.
on a Band-Aid so that I can say everything is good.
Yes.
And I see Mama Crystal and Baba representing Nana Omawali.
I saw that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Powerful.
No better person to represent.
Yes,
I agree.
definitely
I agree.
special remembrance today.
We owe him an enormous a lot.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. On a daily basis, on an hourly, momentarily basis. We absolutely do. We do. And again, I just thank you both for coming on. And I just want to briefly say, like I said, family, this is about, the topic is, of course, we're going to be discussing Baba Baruti's book. But the thing is, I know this to be true. The person that you choose to be your complement, or the complement that comes into your life, has a significantly great impact on your health and your wellness. You choose the wrong person, you're going to live a life that is not going to be good. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes men will say, I tell my son all the time, when you get to the point of age when you're really ready to choose, look at certain things, how she takes care of herself. That's how she's going to take care of you and your children. That's how she's going to rear your children. So it's important, and brothers, when you're choosing, be smart as well, in that sense, because you may choose a woman a brother that eats pork. And that's not good for that man. But because women by nature, by feminine nature, you want to please your man. You want to do those things that he likes. And if you're feeding your family these things, you're going to negatively impact the wellness of your family. So that's just my take. That's just something I wanted to get out there, just think about. But we're going to get this show started because I just love looking at you two. Y'all just look like love. It's just so beautiful. Okay. All right. Okay. Sister Crystal.
Yes, I second everything Sister Mila said. And and what I wanted to talk about is the social media space, because in the internet and all these things, because a lot of times I get frustrated with it, and I just want to just throw the whole thing throw away. But when I think about how I met people like you, it was through social media. And so I think about, that blessing, as they say, of social media. And then we have the curse, of course, because we tend to use the curse part of it more than the blessing part of it. But, the blessing of meeting you both, you've been so instrumental in my involvement, and taking the courses under Baba when you were working with, we did the education and the centered, and that really helped me broaden my thought process and made me understand the importance of teaching our children of giving them the proper perspective, the proper education. Because, when I think about Baba Malcolm, he, never, only a fool will let his enemy educate his children. And without education, you're not going anywhere in this world. And I think we have to think about the proper education. So, because you can say, education, because we've been bamboozled to think that education is key, but we don't ever think about the proper education.
Right. Absolutely. And it makes a difference.
Yes, it makes a big difference. Sister Rhonda today, she posted, what's your favorite Malcolm X quote? And so I really had to sit and think, because they're all so very powerful.
Right.
And so, but when people ask me about, Oasis and Ashe, I think about my miseducation and how I'm still learning. And I become so Mississippi centered, because I'm so impressed with the greatness of the state and the people who came from Mississippi. And it makes me angry that I'm just learning. And I started the learning process when I was 40. And that makes me angry, because I think about what I could have been doing had I learned at an earlier age. And so that quote where he says, a sad people, we don't do anything but feel sorry for ourselves. But when you get angry and when you get mad, that's when you begin to make changes. And so my, that righteous anger is what drives me and inspires me and encourages me and keeps me going. And so I thank you all for being a part of that journey. And I'm so excited tonight to speak with you all again about everything that you do, and especially complementarity, because I don't think we have a clear understanding of how important the family, choosing that complement in the family, is to the nation and the race and the nation, the community. And so I'm looking forward to hearing you all speak tonight about that, because I think, as your book so thoroughly explains, our perceptions are coming from a European point of view and not the African point of view. And so that is the reason why we have to have institutions, so that these teachers can be institutionalized, so that we can begin to flourish the way that we are supposed to. So I do want to start, by saying Asante Sana for this beautiful book. And as Sister Rose said in the comments, she said this book is powerful, and it is. And trust me, if you have the book, you will read it more than once, more than twice, because it is so powerful. And for someone like me who does not have a complement, it keeps me inspired and it keeps me encouraged, because as you said, you do the work. Don't be so focused like we are in today on finding that person. If you're doing the work, you're passing on across. So, Bob.
Yes.
I always ask.
But before you do that, Mama, can I just interject? The gratitude flows both ways.
Yes.
So having you as a part of the village, so we learn from each other. Because when I'm on your page, I'm always learning about new books, but new Mississippians. Because I don't know my peeps, all the peeps from Mississippi either.
Right.
But so it's village love, and it flows both ways. So I definitely wanted to make that point. And we're definitely looking forward to learning, and you're introducing us to additional people in the village.
Yes.
So we're learning about Sister Eli as well. We get
and I want
paid.
to say, she's Mississippi too. She's a Mississippi.
Yes.
Oh, girl. Okay. You didn't tell me that, Mama.
Yes.
Oxford, Mississippi is where I was born.
Yes.
Oxford. Okay. Give thanks.
Yeah. And
Right.
so, and I do want to say too that, Sister Mila and I crossed paths a couple years ago, and it was like instantaneous. And,
Okay.
I'm sure, and I know it's because we had the same type of vision, same kind of type of mindset. And so the friendship is organic and it has grown. And I'm so thankful because I, call on her and I send her a text and I'm like, girl, listen to this. And she'll laugh with me and all that. Because as you all know, when you're on this path, the real ones are hard to come by. And so you have to cherish them when they do cross your path. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate everyone who's on, who I'm speaking with tonight, and those who are tuned in to hear the wise words of our Mama Baba. So Baba, I forgot who made a post a couple years ago, and they were talking about, is there something out there that can teach us about how we need to handle our relationships, because we look at everything from the European point of view. And I was like, your book came to my mind immediately. And so I posted it and I was like, this complementarity is where, it's a perfect guide for that. What inspired you to write it, and the notes as well? What was the inspiration for that?
Wow.
For these books?
I had wanted to say that everything thus far, we talk about complementarity sometimes, and we're not doing that here, but sometimes we'll talk about certain aspects of our life as if they're disconnected from other, and that's one of the things that's going on here. We're talking about other things, but Malcolm is related to complementarity. All these things are related to complementarity, so it's not like we can go someplace in this discussion and we'll leave complementarity.
Right.
It's going to stay at the center. This is us, family. We're a child, family-centered people. So that's automatic. Complementarity just is one of the glues that make it work. It's a central glue, and then an essential glue, but it's not the only thing that is the glue or that holds it together. That's it. What inspired complementarity is what inspired all of the books. Things I saw in the community that either weren't explained the way that I thought that they needed to be explained, or were not explained in terms of them being strictly in line with the way of our ancestors, or questions that people would bring up. I mean, we had, for years, I'm listening to brothers say, I can't find a good sister. I can't find, and sisters saying, I can't find a good brother. And I'm saying, I'm looking at both of these groups in this. I'm saying, you guys can't see each other. I mean, so it's like, in a way, complementarity is very much like Iwa, because I'm assuming that we just don't see the guidelines as established through practice with our ancestors. So I go back further than that. When I was angry when I came out of grad school. Okay, so we got angry about the same age, Mama Crystal. I was very angry, and one of the reasons I was angry is because there was nowhere was it written the sequence of stages, events, what have you, that you're going to go through in the process of waking up to the point where you begin to apply that work. And if I had known these stages, well, then I wouldn't have stayed constantly frustrated and righteously enraged in that way without direction. So complementarity was like the same thing, and the book is written in that way. You meet somebody, it takes you through the process of doing that. So I thought that would be useful to warriors trying to find their way, trying to find their complements to building family, to establishing that model. And of course, it was a conversation, just like all of my books are conversation. This is a conversation the two of us have, and have been having for
Mm-hmm.
decades now. Relative to what needs to be said about what anybody who, I would say probably anybody who writes, who's in a complementary relationship, is just that they have that talent for writing, but they don't write alone. They absolutely do not write alone. But I just wanted to make it clear from our perspective. We, lots of books out there about relationship, blah blah blah, but we're talking to Africans who are supposed to be clear, or their way of being clear, who are clear. This is our way. Now, if we want to, say that like it's some kind of unique process or unique situation, I really don't have a problem with that, because I'm not talking to everybody.
Right.
I'm not talking to folks who want to fall into the African American, category, which, African is an adjective of the noun American. I'm not worried about that. The goal for me with each one of my books was to write to the warriors. Now, if the older folks, elders, what have you, if they get something from it, and folks who aren't warriors yet, they get something from it, that's fine. But the focus, you know your audience, you're supposed to know your audience. That's who I'm writing to, the warriors. And I saw a lack of clarity, really about the time that the book was being written. I'm trying not to make this long, but really about the time that this book was written, we were depressed, because all we saw were the wrong people getting together, the wrong people having children together, folks breaking up. I mean, we had started, conversation with people. And I remember a counseling session where almost broke my heart. All she wanted to do was for us to explain to him that she didn't want to be with him anymore. And when you're in counseling, it's supposed to be about, okay, let's see if we can make this work, or plan. That was like what we saw. We saw children being brought up in a community where they were being allowed to go any European way they wanted to, and the parents were walking around in African garb, being African, talking this African stuff, and the children were lost. And I'm saying, okay, well, where's the structure of the family? That's supposed to be part of the process. You're not supposed to find somebody who's African, get married, what have you, have some children, and then let the children go the European way. That's like, to me, that's like church, where you are a religious person because you're trying to save yourself. You're not trying to save your community. You're trying to save yourself. You're so individualized that you don't look at everybody else. So we saw complementary relationships where it was like either the two of them are against the world by themselves, or there was this constant battle. So I just, I would say maybe being naive. I don't think so, but maybe being naive. I said, okay, well, we need to have the rules and guidelines written out, and people can do with them what they will. But they need. I want to at least be able to. I say that most things that I will write, I want to at least be able to transition, saying that I put this on paper, that I left the warriors with this information. So that was all of that. I would say together was really the impetus to writing complementarity. Complementarity notes was kind of like the same process, because there was a lot of questions about, okay, how do we make this continue? Mm-hmm. How do we maintain, Madasi? How do we maintain this relationship? How do we, get through all of the difficult times and the battles, if you will, and all of the rest, time? How do we make the good times last? So complementarity notes. I look at complementarity as theory, but for me, theory isn't. For us, theory, when I say theory, I'm not talking about somebody's ideas that may or may not work and they have to be tested. I'm talking about the thinking process of complementarity. So I look at complementarity, the book, the blue one, as theory, and then I look at complementarity notes as practice.
Okay. It makes sense. Perfect sense to me, because that's one of my frustrations with us as a collective sometimes, is that we want to theorize and never put anything into practice. And so when you start putting it into practice, then you can start tweaking it and adjusting and making corrections, but you got to put it into practice if sometime, eventually. And so, I appreciate what you just said, because that's a great way to explain it. Okay, notes comes from the practical part of it, because I think sometimes we get so stuck in the theory.
Yes. Many times.
So of course, as Baba's compliment, I first and foremost recommend his books, Complementarity Notes. But we also recommend for all African people, Ron Elmore's How to Love a Black Man and How to Love a Black Woman. And we recommend that sisters read both of them and brothers read both of them. Ron Elmore is a Black marriage counselor who, when he wrote these books, had been married over 20 years, had been counseling couples over 20 years. And when I read it, we had been married over 30 years at that time. We just celebrated our 38th anniversary. But even having been married 30 years, or whatever number it was over 30, I learned a lot from the book. So definitely those are two good books as well.
So you're saying,
but read, as I said, read Bob. No. I said Baba Baruti's books first and foremost.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did, very clearly.
Secondarily, you should also read these books as well. And Baba agrees.
Yeah, absolutely. Ron Nefer Amen's, I forgot the name of his book. I really like that.
Yeah, something Afrocentric
Union. Afrocentric Union. That's a very good. It's very hard to find.
Okay,
but it's a very good book as well.
Afrocentric Union.
Union is part of the title.
That's part of the title.
Okay.
Ron Nefer.
Ron Nefer Amen.
You know, Osara Set founder.
It's a very, very good. Well, his books are always serious. His books are always good.
Okay.
And he has a way of being able to say things concisely.
Okay. And just an aside. Over the years, we've known a lot of couples read books together. So, and the first time we heard that, they had read Complementarity. They were coming here for some event we were given.
From South Carolina.
And yes, they were reading and in the car. So one was driving, the other one's reading, but they, read the book together, which is really good. So they get to discuss.
Absolutely.
And we also know people who've said, if they're interested in someone before pursuing it, it's a requirement. You have to read this book first. And they, because for them, that's the foundation.
Right.
Definitely. Go
ahead, Mama.
No, go ahead.
Let's see. I just have a meme that I will put out occasionally on my page, and the words didn't come from me. They came from a brother who was in the process of a search, and he found when he said complementarity is like the litmus test. He said, I'll give her a copy of Complementarity and she reads it, and then we talk, and that'll tell me whether this is even worth pursuit.
Absolutely. I agree. I think it's the same for sisters with your book as well. If you
yes.
It tells you a lot. I mean, because you break it down from sexual relations to everything. Everything is in there. Rearing your children and the difference between raising and rearing. I wanted to ask a question before you continue, Sister Crystal. Because when you spoke, Baba, you spoke on how often you had couples to come in and we're saying things, that were discouraging in the sense of being together. So, and the purpose of us being together is to continue to build. So why is it that complementarity is so important as it relates to us Africans and nation building? Why would you tell them that is so important to have your complementarity in that regard?
Well, to me, there's several reasons. I mean, starting out with just a basic, when you have, and I haven't looked at complementarity in a while, but I remember the statement of, and I don't know if that may be in complementarity. Regardless, the point is that they are afraid of me as an individual, as an African man. They are afraid of my power. They're afraid of my knowledge. They're afraid of me remembering and enacting on their remembrance. So,
it's unclear that they.
Europeans, yeah.
I mean, just for the audience, because I was trying to figure out for a second.
Urugu. And they are afraid of her because for the same reasons. So just based upon the fact that when you bring two people together, the power, is magnified. And of course, that brings up a point which is off from your question. But when you are searching for somebody, and this is something I always tell the young folk, and then they'll think about it, is that if you're looking for a compliment, the first thing you need to do is sit down and figure out what you're not good at.
Yeah.
Okay, what you're sorry at, what you don't do well, You look for somebody who can do that.
Who does that
Or
well?
you're just replicating, you know, I mean, why marry somebody has the same talents and same everything else? How is that growth?
Mm-hmm.
So that's to me is part of the search process. So that speaks to me in terms of the power of complementarity, in terms of strengthening a community,
Mm-hmm.
because the stronger the individual complements within that community are, the stronger the community, just like the stronger the individuals within that. It's power complementarity. You need, and I'll let Eniac, because she makes this point better than me about the serving as a springboard, not a springboard, of bouncing. When you talk to the students about having somebody critique you, and having somebody close to critique you.
Oh, I didn't have a special way of phrasing that, but
this is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you just heard me talking to students about this the
I
other
always
day.
hear talking to students about this.
So when the students, of course, like nobody is thrilled to be critiqued, no matter how sweetly or constructively it is given.
Life is hard.
But I've pointed out that what I've seen in cases, and this is not across the board, but when you are single, there's no one there on a daily basis to constructively critique you. Unlike when you're married, be prepared. You will, but you need it, because if it's like looking in a mirror, you can only see your face, and you're only seeing a reflection of your face. But your complement gets to see a 360-degree view. But that's how I've seen people, say family members, whoever, over the years, to whatever their way was and issues, there was nobody there, even if their siblings or friends spoke to them whenever it came up with them on a daily basis. They're doing their thing, and wuthout that constructive criticism that we all need to assist us in growing. So that point, yes.
And for me, my training is in sociology. So socialization is has been a major part of my studies for the last, 30 some years. That's the heart of it all. And the family is where the children are supposed to be first socialized. The problem with that, of course, is that we have, and this should never be the characteristic of a warrior once they recognize it, a warrior complementary pair, once they recognize it, they're supposed to be socializing their child, not the idiot box, not your Bluetooth, not, their phones. Because if you're not socializing them, if you're relinquishing your socialization to that, you're relinquishing their socialization to your Ruger.
True.
You're not responsible. So this spoilage, which started out with Knoxbox book, this has been a way of removing our children from us. And when you change the children, then you change the people forever.
Right.
Change the people. So the complementary couple, and we should know well, he can't do it well for all the children by himself. She can't do it well for all the children by herself. So you need the input of two people. We're very different. You and I are extremely different when it comes to, not in terms of whether discipline should be applied, but how it should be applied. And of course, with a complement, it allows for some balance in there. Because I would be too overbearing and she would be too nice. So it brings that balance when the two people respect each other. It's like when I talk about domains, where, and I got this from my parents. I thought it was the norm. I've discovered that it's not necessarily the norm, but I think it should be the norm, where my father allowed my mother to be the expert and the final say in those areas that she knew. So when it came to finances, when it came to decorating the house, when it came to the education of the children, he didn't, he might have some input, but she made the final decision. And when it came to security, she might have some input, but he made the final decisions. Right. Okay, when it came to other things, so these having a complementary pair that brings wisdom, knowledge, what have you, into the relationship, then you're multiplying that twofold. That scares the living daylights out of our enemies.
Absolutely.
You know, what has been initiated against us, where you got men saying women ain't nothing and women saying men ain't nothing. That's not accidental. This is systematic. It has been employed for a particular reason, and that reason is to destroy the family. The family has been the main institution that Europeans have worked to destroy.
Absolutely.
Over religion, over education, or anything. If you destroy the family, it's a done deal, because they become the family for the children.
Right.
So for me, the importance of the complementary pair is for them to understand their value historically. Because if they don't realize that, then they can't do the work that they need to do without fear.
That's right.
Okay? That's a major component of, if I know, I'm just reading Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat by Wilson. One of the points he keeps making is the problem is we don't know who we are. When you don't know who you are, then you're psychotic, you're neurotic, and you're responding to the will of somebody else, and that somebody else is your enemy. That somebody else is doing everything in their power to, you know, undermine you, because they understand.
That's right.
Just how bad you are. They understand this. It's like it's not like we don't recognize our power. We don't recognize the power of an African family in terms of the protection of the children, in terms of the education of the children. When you have two quality adults, then the children, and they're not spoiled. And you haven't, well, that's my quality. I'm talking about people who are rearing children with common sense, common African sense. Then the children, they might not like everything that they're told or the way that it's told, but they know that they know to do what they're told, because they know that their parents love them and their parents would not tell them anything that would hurt them. Their parents are doing nothing. Right. Now, my I guess not to get off track. My father never hugged me. Okay, my father never told me I love you. My father never told me I'm proud of you. You know, never told me any of that. But I knew that he loved me. I knew that he was proud of me. I knew all this stuff because of what he did for the family. It was obvious in his action. He wasn't talking. Okay?
That's powerful.
Very little. But it's just, he did the work. And that was all the evidence. And now you have all these people have to tell their children every day, 20,000 times a day, I love you. And it's baloney. It's baloney. It doesn't mean anything, because it's not.
It's just words. Yes.
An apology where you haven't changed your behavior. You know, so the importance of the complementary pair is, to me, only evident in the development of a clear-sighted family, where Baba Sanyika made the point that if you're African, if you're doing the African thing, if you will, then you are rearing your children to be warriors who will look for warrior compliments, who will marry them, who were real warriors, who will find warrior compliments, who are real warriors on and on.
That's right.
On down the road. But if you're not rearing your children to be a warrior by that example, there's an event that you have to go to, and you know that you need to, you know, impress the community, whatever. You have your African attire on, your Malcolm t-shirt, what have you. Then your children also should have on their Malcolm t-shirts.
Right.
They also should have got up this morning with a quote from Malcolm.
That's right.
So to me, part of the value is in setting the example. As an aside, studies show, and Europeans, they really, really twist this stuff around, so you end up doing stuff that you think that you're doing is good, but it's meaningless. Studies show that it's not how many books you have in terms of children learning to read and learning to read early. It's not how many books you have, and it's not how many times you read to your child every day, even though these are important. Okay? Because the child who's talked to more develops their verbal skills earlier. That's not the point. The child who sees you reading is the one who reads the most.
That's right.
The child who sees you reading. Okay. So our daughter, to me, it was funny. Our daughter before she could even, she didn't know her ABCs yet. Before she had her little chair, and when I got the mail, I'd give her the junk mail, and she'd open it up and pretend like she's reading it, like Annie and I. She's sitting there, she's all happy, she's got her mail. So when it was, when it came time for her to read, she was an avid reader. And I tell you, Annie, I read to her a lot, but things that I was doing didn't allow me to do it the way that Annie I did. Yeah. And people would say, well, why aren't you reading to your daughter? Blah, blah, blah. Students, in college, why aren't you? She sees me read. She sees me read constantly, all the time, every day. So she has a model of what it means to read.
Yeah.
And we live and operate at a different time. So, 3, 4, 5 generations ago, you had parents who could not read, who were quote unquote illiterate. Okay. But there was a different mentality, a different attitude toward learning. Okay? That was a major priority, which of course is part of the process that we need that can only be done through compliments. It can't be done through lectures. It has to be done through compliments, where we make education a priority, and not only education, but African-centered education a priority for our children. And they see this from birth, not just when they get old enough and they've already read, like I said, the white boy classics and all the rest of it. No, that becomes first. Then they understand. They might not necessarily, they might still think they're in prison. They still might be fighting it tooth and nail, but they're clear as to why. And if you don't have compliments doing this work, and I'm going to say that loosely because I also understand what's going on in society, so it's hard for people to become and find compliments of worth. Okay, but understanding that that's the priority, and I look at that the same way I look at us building institutions that we need to build, but we have to go work for Urugu to make some money. What is the goal? If that's the goal, and that doesn't change, and that's your priority, even though you have to work to feed your family now, where you don't want to work, as long as that's the goal, is good. Okay. Same thing applies in terms of searching for a compliment. As long as you don't lose that, and as long as you're not settling. To me, that's a major issue for folks. As long as you're not settling, we have so many people settling because they're so desperate for company and all the rest of that, and then that's messed up, and then the next one's messed up, and then the next one's messed up, and then the next one's messed up.
Yeah.
Sure advice: do not settle.
That's right.
Do not settle. So everything that it means to be African, which you are doing, which is one of the reasons I say do your work, and your compliment is going to be somewhere, because they should be doing the work as well. And then
That's
that some of the issues are already out of the way. Did I lose my train of thought? Whatever. Yeah. If you're I'm through. Good.
That was good. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I thought, and before I forget, Mama Crystal, just FYI, several sister friends in the village in your age group, they have found compliments in the last few years.
Yes.
So, I was thrilled when it was the first one, and then it was another one, and another one, and another one. So that's a beautiful thing. So we are still finding compliments, is not a cutoff point.
Right.
So, and we look forward to yours.
Yes, absolutely.
But what I thought about when you asked Baba, Sister Mila, why is complementarity important? I thought about John Mbidi's book, Introduction to African Religions. But the reason Baba has issues with him, but he talks about, there's a chapter in there. So I'm specifically referring to this chapter on the purpose of marriage in traditional Africa. There are several things. It is an obligation. And in fact, I was recently talking to the students about that, asking the students, so do you plan to get married? And one of the young ladies told me no. I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. So I ran to get my list. This is why in traditional Africa, marriage was so important. And I'm pleased to say, and she's a youngster, but I'm pleased to say after that discussion, I had them do a vision board for their future. And a husband was her vision. We give thanks. But, you know, when you think about it, if it is not taught, then you don't know. But anyway, on that list, first and foremost, it's an obligation. So, you know, in the West, it's optional. True. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but it's an obligation. And even in terms of, you know, being considered a man or a woman, you were not considered a man or woman until you married in traditional, you know, African society. Also, you know, in this society, it's optional. Do you want to have children or not? But that was considered an obligation as well. So these are basic obligations for traditional African people. Marriage is bringing a uniting of families. So, you know, unlike in the West, when it's about you and me against the world, you and I know it's two families, and those families have to be in agreement, because we see many examples in this society when it's people, oh, we love each other, we don't care what our families think. That's a problem. So either you're not going to have a relationship with your family, which is anti-African, or, you know, it's drama. So they need to, the families need to be on board. And of course, the families love you. So now we know we have been victimized by having European standards of, you know, what your spouse is supposed to look like. But that's a separate issue. But just know, even if you have found a good person of good character, all these things, if your family is not on board, it's going to cause conflict. It's absolutely going to be conflict. Okay. It's a uniting link in the rhythm of life, and where he talks about, so the couple who marries, of course, are united with the past, their elders and ancestors, but also they bring forth children. So that's uniting them with the future. So marriage does that. It gives mature social identity and status. And I was just referring to that. You're not even considered a man or a woman, you know, until you get married. The nation is a building of family. And of course, we know we talk a lot in our community about nation building, and we see schools and businesses and other things. A lot of people don't recognize, well, what is a nation? A nation is a group of people. How do we get a group of people? It starts with the couple who has children. So we do all of the other nation building work. But if our families are not strong and intact, we're building a house on shaky foundation.
That's right.
Very important. So, you know, of course, it starts with family, clans, and it becomes a nation, but it starts with a couple. It gives a person completeness. Now, I think not the European, oh, you're incomplete. You go through life, if you don't have a complement, you're incomplete. No,
not that.
People coming together, but I think it speaks more to that balance, that your complement helps you to bring balance to you, because you're going to be, hopefully as a woman, you're more in your feminine energy, as you should be. But you need that balance. And I knew personally, I did not grow up with my father in my life. Now, thankfully, I had my grandfather and my uncles. So I did have father figures, but I didn't get the balance I would have gotten had my father been there, you know, on a daily basis. But also it's allows for remembrance of our parents after they transition, because it's our obligation to honor them and remember them through libation. But then it's our children's obligation to remember us when we become ancestors, and so on and so forth. And we talk about this when we're officiating weddings, but Baba added, which is definitely true, character development. And I think we already referred to that, because someone who's able to give you constructive criticism, the people on the outside, I told the students, my friends, they know a lot of my shortcomings because I tell them, not that they see it. Because how we live in the West, we're not even in the village where I have friends who live right down the street, and I rarely run into them. I see them at community events. We're more time on the phone, than actually in each other's presence. So we don't get to know each other like I did growing up in a small town surrounded by my family. So we got to know everybody's challenges because we saw each other on a daily basis. But it's something we already alluded to. Definitely someone is there to assist you in pointing out how you need to work on yourself.
Absolutely.
But so definitely, it's about, if we say we're African centered, then you're going to be hard pressed to come up with an argument as to why you should not have a compliment, because it definitely speaks to our traditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when you are both of you are speaking about that, I often say that I give thanks for my childhood and my dad having the forethought and the wisdom to move us back to small town Arkansas. And I grew up in a segregated community, but I realized it was a safe community. And because I'm noticing and I'm learning that a lot of our problems are because of assimilation. And the more we assimilate, the sicker we get.
Absolutely.
And so I think a lot of us don't really understand that and realize that because when we were in these safe communities, segregated communities, we had what somebody called an ecosystem. And I love that, the ecosystem of elder, warrior, children. You had your families intact. You had the correction that you were speaking of, Mama, from the elders. And it wasn't out of a place of it was out of a space of love.
Absolutely.
It was because they wanted to see you be your best and do your best.
Nation building.
And now, what Baruti has said earlier, about now you got all these people that tell you they love you and all this empty stuff. They don't show it, but they want to tell you, no, love is the word. And so, and I just give thanks all the time because I have bear witness and I grew up experiencing a real village, a true village. If I came home with a bike that didn't belong to me, my parents were like, "Where'd you get that bike from?" I saw that growing up. My mom had a store, and some young men broke into her store, and they took the items to one of the young men's house, and she was like, "I know where y'all got that from. Y'all got that from Flo." So she told my mom, and she said, they broke into It was just that type of a community. And now the same small town, somebody can break in your house in the broad daylight and no one knows anything.
Well, nobody says anything. Sister Crystal, your rearing shows in the way that you are now. It shows that you were raised in that type of community. So, you're the perfect example of what it is we're talking about. So,
so I just appreciate that because I really want to remind us as a collective that we have it. We just got to go back and fetch it. That Sankofa is one of my favorite principles. And go back and fetch it. What Professor Paul says, remember what we already know. We already know it. And so just going back, that's our motto at Ashe Academy, unlearning to learn, teaching to nation build. And I just appreciate everything you all said because I see so many on tonight, and I've been getting a couple of text messages as well about the powerful message that's being presented tonight. And one sister said she's in tears. It's just overwhelming to hear all this reaffirmation from you who have been in this fight, in this teaching, in this walk for many years. So that's appreciated. There was something else I wrote down. There was a passage on page 52, and I think it was about the traditional. Where you wrote traditional does not mean archaic, outdated, outmoded, primitive, backwards. And I think sometimes we think that way
Mhm.
because you were saying when we say complementarity, I think that's the word we need to use because Europeans use the phrase gender roles, and I don't
Mhm.
like that
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
because it has a negative connotation to it. And I think we need to use the word complementarity. We
Mhm.
complement, do what works for your family. If you were saying, your dad was the final say in some areas and your mom was the final say. And
Mhm.
and use that instead of gender roles. Because I hate when people say, there are no gender roles in my house. Stop saying that.
Yeah. It's
Because that's
ridiculous.
negative already. It's already
Mhm.
a negative connotation in that. So I appreciate your choice of words and you're defining those words for us. And I'm gonna yield to Mrs. Lee.
Oh, so I'm thinking all the time that this conversation is going on. One of the fundamental agreements and awarenesses of two people who want to become complements is that they're African.
Yes.
That's baseline, because then all of these practices, they come into place more easily. And the idea of tradition being something Europeans practice their tradition.
Mhm.
They haven't lost their tradition. We're the ones that have gotten rid of our tradition so that we can be them.
Mhm.
That's right.
And that's been a major distractive force. Just talking about the idea of us telling our children that we love them, but subconsciously we don't really care. Because that will be reflected in the action. But that's part of becoming more and more European. So you're becoming more and more part of the essence of a society that believes that if I can fake it, if I can pretend it, then it becomes real.
Just say it.
If I can just say it, it becomes real. So now most of us, we think that just because we say it, people are automatically going to believe it. And you look at children and they will look at you and say, well, I said it. What do you mean you questioning what I said? I said it. I'm just saying, I just saw you steal that. I just saw you lie. But because you said, no, I didn't do it, then that makes it correct.
Right.
So the idea that we are African, period, that should be foundational. Removes the idea that tradition is a problem because the tradition is us.
Mhm.
We're the tradition. We are our ancestors. So, in fact, the word tradition becomes technically meaningless. It's just something that you use to speak to origins. It came from way back. We've been doing this forever. So that makes it a tradition. And in this, in complementarity, early on in the book, I talk about, real quick, the four things that to me are real simple. That both people need to agree with. There needs to be consensus in particular areas. Period. No ifs, no ands, no buts. You got to me like you have white friends. Bye. Okay, that's the end of the discussion for me. There's certain things that automatically remove her as a possibility. So for me, I say they must know who their enemies are. They must be clear on that. And when they say that, what John Clark said, we have no friends. We have no friends. And when the two people who understand that, just like two people who understand we're after sovereignty, it's a whole different process for them. There are questions that don't even have to be asked because we know what to do in this situation because we're after sovereignty. And the second point, and this is on page 10 in the book, believe that you're responsible for the historically conscious education and elevation of our children, period. Nobody else. And if anybody comes into that space who introduce anything else, they have to go. So automatically, if this school system that my child in is not doing that, then my child has to come out. Because this is an agreement that we made to each other. This is a promise that we made to each other. And we're not lying to each other. We're not like some other people. We don't lie to each other like that. The third one, accept their primary and voluntary, often think role activists and builders, that you are a worker. We're workers. And to me, being a worker is like being in service to African people. There's nothing higher than that.
Right.
That's right.
In Uruguay's world, there is, but we're not Uruguay, and we're not operating in Europeans' world. We're operating within an African world, period. And if we have to die in the process, well, so be it. Our children have something to be proud about.
That's right.
They have something, just like we honor Malcolm because he didn't knuckle under to them. It wasn't a concern. The children need to see that consequences are irrelevant when you're right.
Mm-hmm.
What do they see? For the most part, they see people so worried about what can happen to them or what tomorrow or what this will do to my bank account, blah, 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 that they will do wrong. And the children, of course, see that wrong, and they'll see that as the easiest route. They'll see it as the easy way to do it. And the fourth one is have a clear, undoubting vision of African victory over enemies. Okay, don't come to me in a relationship talking about we might win. I think it's, there's a possibility that if this happens or that happens, we may have a chance. No, we're winning. And this came from a conversation that I had, a conversation an elder had with me decades ago. He asked me, how's it going? How you guys doing? And, the school and blah, blah, blah. And I said, we're trying. He looked at me and his face frowned up in pretty much anger. I said, no, we're not trying. We're winning. You're winning. You don't ever say that we're trying. And that made me think about motivation speakers who will tell you when there's something that you want, something that you want to do, something that you want to become. You don't say, I want that, or this is my dream. You say, I am a doctor. I am a librarian. Mm-hmm. I am an auto mechanic. I am that already. And you're giving your mind instruction, and your mind's going to find a way to make that happen. That's as long as you keep affirming that. That's we don't affirm what we may think about wanting, possibly having. We affirm what we want right then and there. That's part of that process. And that affirming works. So in our relationships, the same thing. To affirm all four of these things on a regular basis is you have to walk. What is it? The secret to success is to have no fear. Mm-hmm. You have to have, if we want to win, and I argue we are winning, of course, but if we want to win, and I don't think anything's wrong with that question, if we want to win, because that causes us to think about those things that will put us more positively in that direction. If we want to win, then we have to walk into or develop, because people in relationships, they develop there or find a way to being African while they're in relationships. They can come to relationships being completely oblivious, and then certain things happen. You're true. Certain books are read, and they wake up, hopefully together, which is another point for. I'm going to lose my first point. Which is another point in terms of talking and counseling to people. When you have a relationship with someone and you both begin to maybe wake up, you're going to wake up at different speeds. Okay. And understand when I say women tend to wake up slower than the men. And why do I say that? Because women will take more time to consider what's going to happen as a result of this. Men just going to go jump into it. Okay. But the women can perhaps get killed. But the women are going to be more thoughtful about it. So when we started Afrikan, I'm, okay, let's do this. And I said, well, let me work for another year just to make sure this works first. I'm not, concerned about that, but she is. So when brothers come to me, one of the main complaints that I hear is, and they'll be upset about it. I'm trying to get her to read this, and I'm trying to get her to read this book, and I'm trying to explain to her, people move at their own pace. You don't force something like that. You move at your own pace. And I said, what you're going to discover though is that once she decides that this is the ticket, she's going to surpass you.
That's right.
Everyone that I've said that to has come back and said, yeah, it happened. So we have to understand that people move at different pace. And now that's not a all statement. I mean, I'm sure there are relationships where the opposite happens, but that's what I've seen most. And we need to be aware and cognizant, especially when we didn't maybe walk into a relationship fully centered or conscious, that when we begin to move in that direction, everybody's not going to be moving at the same pace, which is when you're in a common relationship, you're supposed to be developing your character. You're supposed to be trying to improve yourself. And one of the virtues of improvement is developing patience, developing tolerance, developing understanding. That's supposed to be part of the process. When I came into this relationship with her, my temper was horrible. Okay? Mm-hmm. I lost stripes in the military, money in the military. I mean, I got into all kinds of trouble when I was a child. I don't know how many fights I got into, and I never lost a fight because I always called my brother. But I don't know how many fights I got into when I was a child. But when I met her, if it was not for her, I would probably still be in the bottle. I would probably still be fighting everybody who came along my way.
Wow.
Because I didn't see it as a problem. It was just the way that I was. I didn't recognize it as a problem, and I didn't consider it in relationship to somebody else, its impact on somebody else. So being in this relationship, and there's an African saying that I think it's Fukuyama, it might have been Fukuyama, you don't fall in love until you've been married for quite a while. Because it's like climbing this mountain. And for me, I look at it also in terms of you don't know that person's power when you first meet them. You know, you're in love and all. You don't recognize that person's power until you have seen them go through some stuff.
That's right.
Then you are able to see and recognize, oh, I'm married to this. We bad. You know, you can't see that when you are young. You might see a powerful person, but you get to see their real power when you've been with them long enough to deal with some stuff. And I'm not talking about between the two of you per se. Dealing with this world, dealing with this reality, dealing with the difficulties and hardships in this world. That's when you get to recognize it. I said people who've been together for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Some people say 10 years. You really don't understand yet.
Not yet.
Who you have.
Wow.
You really don't recognize it yet. So I understand what it means. And I had a sister get upset with me because you can't just fall in love on first sight and everything is good. And I said, no, it doesn't. She was really upset with me because that was her story. But no, that doesn't mean you can't. There's a difference between infatuation, and infatuation plays a role. I mean, it's like you have to kind of like see something that you like. When you wake up in the morning and you look at this, you don't want to have to freak out and run as fast as you can. You want it to be something that you like to look at. So that's part of the process, and that's part of the sustaining process as well. You'll go through these periods where, oh wow, she's cute. I forgot about that. It's a sustaining part of the relationship, but it shouldn't be the core.
Right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the core, and some people misinterpret the infatuation as the core. It's not the core. That's one of the tools, if you will, in the relationship, which helps to sustain it.
And Baba, I watched a lecture of yours last year before Sister Crystal referred me to get the book. And you mentioned a term, tremendous trifles, about the stupidity, the reasons why people break up in relationships. I remember speaking to one of my sisters about it, who was saying it was stupid, a reason for the divorce. And I referred her to your lecture. They didn't get a divorce. She was like, that really was stupid. So I kind of wanted you to I was going to ask you to speak to rearing versus raising, but you pretty much both just covered that beautifully. But speak to the tremendous trifles and how that's affecting us from effectively nation building as African warrior couples.
And tremendous trifles is a sociological concept, so that didn't come from me. And usually when we're talking about tremendous trifles, interesting, there's this relationship correlation between people not being happy with each other and looking for stuff that is disturbing, or looking for stuff that doesn't fit, or looking for problems with that individual. And we know when we're looking for something wrong, we're going to find something wrong. And when you are, let's say, angry with someone, then you're going to be angry with whatever they do.
That's right.
The flowers were the wrong color. I don't like purple. Why are you bringing me purple? Everything is going to be wrong. But it's like that is in Western society, because we're dealing with this one single individual. There isn't family involved in this. We expect that person to be our all in all, which of course brings up another discussion, which maybe I can touch on that in terms of having your sister friends and your brother friends in terms of our traditions, because I can't talk over everything with her. She's not a man. and she can't talk over everything with me. You know, I'm not a woman. But the tremendous trifles have become such a big thing because when you raise up, when you are like the second or third generation of spoilage in a community, so you're third generation spoiled, you can't tolerate anything that doesn't make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, nothing. If it doesn't, so how long are you going to stay together? You're going to stay together until somebody doesn't get their way, or
That's
you don't
right.
do something in the way that they want it to be done, because spoilage makes it so that you are the center of everything. Nothing else is important. Okay, I love you. Let's get married, blah, blah, blah. But you're still the center of everything. So it's going to get to a point where that person is going to do one thing, or there's going to be something that person does that you don't like.
Yeah.
And it's insignificant in the relationship. It's always, to me, the example of somebody leaves the cap off the toothpaste. Okay. And that's like, for you, you are a person who wants everything clean and neat, et cetera, et cetera. And you ask them about it politely when, you know, you were infatuated, you know, could you, or I'll do it for you. And then you get tired of it. And then it's like, okay, this is like the third time this year you left the cap off the toothpaste on the sink. I'm gone. I'm not, no more conversation, nothing. I'm gone here. You know, I'm changing the lock. You go, something. And that's what you find, or that's what we found, I think, in a lot of the people who we counsel in the conversations. It's really, really, I don't want to say, it's stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really stupid stuff. So we don't look beyond that as to what is the cause. And part of the cause, which we can't necessarily correct, but we have to work on, is the depth of our spoilage. We want everything our way. So you have to look. Like, this is the third generation, and I wasn't exaggerating. This is the third generation of increasingly more intense spoilage in our community. What do you think is going to happen to the relationship? And Urugu planned all of this expertly.
That's right.
He planned all of this. Just like he understands, if I kill one young black man or one young black woman before they had children, that means all of these that they were ever to produce is gone. They know that. They planned this so that we have these men hating women and women hating women thing, because this person isn't perfect. And every relationship you've been into, because you're spoiled, it's going to be something that's going to upset you, and it's going to cause a relationship to fall apart. So if we're going to reverse this, if we're going to change this, if this is going to stop, then we have to stop spoiling our children. They say, well, how's that related to complementarity? Well, you're supposed to make decisions as an African based upon its impact on our community 7 years down the road. That's supposed to be the basis of your decisions. Okay. Either that or your whole goal in life is for you to disappear into whiteness. That's the only other option that we have. And that's the direction that we're going, almost at breakneck speed. So we have to decide, as complements, as potential complements, et cetera, that we don't want this to be the African future. We want to be African in the fullest sense of that word, which means that we have to begin the process of undoing what we've been taught is the only way to live. This is the best way to live. You don't spoil your child. Then they investigate everything, which means they can get really better competition with Europeans. They don't have limits, but that's baloney.
Right.
I didn't get limited. I wasn't spoiled. Okay. I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know. So and mark my word. This is the wonderful things that come from, I guess, getting older and reading what Europeans have done in their processes, just like they're now invading the African continent, which they told us was so ugly and we didn't want to be there. Watch what happens next. They're going to stop spoiling their children. Our children are going to continue to be spoiled. And that's going to allow them to get a greater control over them. Because our children will not be controllable, which means there'll be more of them institutionalized. There'll be more of them without jobs. There'll be more of them desperate and insane because they have no complement or anyone to talk to them or talk them down or whatever. So we're doing this, and they're refining like that.
Wow.
See, they do this repeatedly. The importance of history is to learn the lessons so that you can correct.
Yes.
So that you can stop this from happening. we're not learning the lessons. Wilson would say we're not reading history, and that's one of the reasons why, because we're not picking up on the lessons. But this is one of the critical lessons. Just like forgiving people who don't deserve forgiveness. Okay? Or I should say forgiving a people who do not deserve forgiveness. They haven't stopped. We haven't learned that lesson, so we're still trying to forgive destroyers, murderers, liars. So same thing applies if we are doing our job, if we're doing our best. I don't care how honestly, I don't care how the child feels about it. I don't care if the child is happy with the fact that I'm not spoiling him or her. I really could care less because that child is part of a process.
That's right.
I don't care if they're upset because their peers get spoiled, blah, blah, blah. I'm training you to be an African. I'm training you to be powerful.
That's right.
It'll be inside of you when you want to wake up. I will have done my work. I can sleep at night because I trained you to be an African. That has to be our attitude if we're trying to nation build. If we're not trying to do things that improve ourselves, the quality of our community, our future. We're not nation building anything. We're just throwing around words. I'm nation building, Jegna, all the rest. We just giving people titles that they don't deserve because, and this will be my last point there, we are people of evidence. I'm saying that more and more now. We are people of evidence. That means that every title that you are given by the community, not when you claim, because the people of evidence aren't walking around claiming that I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm mother. No. That's evident in your work.
Right.
You don't have to say it. People will know it from seeing you. Okay. I remember when I was about 15, 16, I'm walking around, I'm a man. My mother father sat there and laughed. So, like, where the evidence of this? I see a little boy with maybe one hair on his chin. So it's like the evidence of the nation building is building a nation. The evidence of being a father is in acting like a father. Whatever your personality may be, acting like a father. Same thing with a mother. So if we're nation builders, that means that we have that 7-year understanding, and we're not concerned about what people think right now.
That's right.
We're not concerned about how somebody's talking about us online or whatever. That's irrelevant. These are my children. I was brought here to bring them into adulthood as Africans.
Right.
Your opinion is irrelevant, in this discussion.
And that's so powerful because when you said that, it reminded me of something, because now, I'm looking at the sentiments of some people these days. And it's like, our grandma put up with stuff because blah, 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 and da, 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 da. And I'm like, they didn't have social media. I'm like, they had the grapevine. They was way more powerful than social media. When you say that 7 years, that put it in perspective for me, because it wasn't just about how I'm feeling right this minute, this instant. I'm keeping this family together because we are a nation, we are a community, and that's what we got to stand on. Right. And I appreciate that, because so much now is like what you said. Oh, he did this, girl, you need to go. No tolerance, no patience. I say patience a lot. We don't have patience with one another anymore. Right. And it's spilling over into every aspect of our life. And it's so damaging. So, you just put that whole, what was it? The tremendous trifles. I'll be using that in my comments because it's so powerful. And I wish more people were tuned in to hear this, because, it's a battle. I have 3 children, and I don't battle with my son as much as my daughters, with that whole concept of, well, you don't do this and you don't say it this way, and you don't, and I'm like, I'm not here to sugarcoat. You got to learn, life is tough. And so I want to prepare you for that.
That's right.
And I'm not that parent. And sometimes I feel like I'm less than, but I'm glad you said that, because I can't worry about that. That right there, that's what it is. It's meant to make me question my Africanness. Yeah. And, I'm so thankful that I was grounded, because when you're grounded, you never lose that. You never lose it. You always come back. And so I thank you all for, validating and reaffirming that in my spirit. That means so much to me as somebody who battles with that. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I second that.
And I wanted to quickly say, you have Mama Crystal, you may be making an adjustment because you have to reach people where they are. So I'm always saying the 7-year thing, but you just said, 7-generation thing. You just said 7-year.
Oh.
That makes perfect sense in this reality, because a lot of people can't imagine that. Just like Jacob Carruthers said, we can't tell African people this is the year, 220,000, blah, blah. We got to give back increments, and then they'll get the whole thing. So to tell people, is for some people like 7 months. You need to
literally,
but maybe just that number 7 is good for this. So I'm going to incorporate, if you don't mind. I'm going to incorporate 7 years into that discussion as well, because that may give people a point at which they can grab easier, more feasible for them.
Yeah, my dad was pretty tough. He was our disciplinarian, and he was a worker, and he was a provider, and so he instilled that into my sister and I. You're gonna get up, you're gonna work, you're gonna do this, you're gonna, there were just some fundamental things he taught us. One was live below your means. Why are you trying to live to impress somebody else? You need to live below your means. And I'm thankful that I learned that, because it gives me a certain freedom now. And so I try to teach that to my children. We live in this money, got to get that money society now. So and our children do live in a paradox. We teach one thing, but then they deal with the reality of something else. And so, it's a constant struggle, but hey, we don't give up. We keep fighting, because we are winning, because they always circle back, because life is the best teacher. Experience is a teacher as well. So they'll come and you have those conversations with them. This is what I was talking about when I said blah, blah, blah. This is why I do such and such. So, it does always come back, and I'm so thankful. I just give thanks all the time, as I'm entering this season in my life where a lot of my older family members have transitioned on. I am thankful for great memories and great experiences. So I just want to say asante again for this conversation, because it's so needed, and it needs to be institutionalized. I won't stop saying that these teachers have to be institutionalized.
Absolutely. Start early. Absolutely.
Yes.
And can I just quickly interject? So, Mama, when you said you deal with what we dealt with, and many of us deal with, we teach our children, and even though we moved till our daughter was 5, so she did have a village, but it wasn't the village you and I had in terms of, like, I lived on the property with my blood relatives, so it was like we're all on this road. Grandparents, Aunt Bessie, my mom, great Aunt Bessie, Uncle Joe, Aunt Little B, Aunt Malaya, Uncle Malcolm, Uncle Charlie, and you're surrounded. Everybody was on the same page. And then we all went to the family church where everybody's on the same page. And even at the schools, the teachers were of that general, old school discipline and thinking. So it was easier for the parents to train their children because it was being reinforced on every hand. But we live in Atlanta, so we had a village. There are people who are like family to us. But as I say, I have friends who live down the street and we don't literally see each other. So if you're teaching your children one thing, but it's not reinforced on every hand in the way that it was for you and I, for you and me, English teacher, you and me, Crystal, so they don't have that reinforcement. So that is an issue and something for compliments, getting married, the importance of a village. It can't be underestimated because you can do your very best. And if there isn't a village reinforcing, and even in cases where the children have more of a village, they will go off to college or get grown, still, tempted by the world. But the chances are better that they can really live and embrace what we're teaching them when they see it's not just their parents who they think, oh, you just want my life. You just over the top. That's too much. You know, you being extra. When they see, no, this is how a group of us believe. So that's something important to compliments out there. Your children need a village, and you know, you cannot underestimate that need, as well as you need a village. You know, but oftentimes say even if you're a couple, you still need a village. But as an adult, so I talk to my family members on the phone. I haven't seen my family members in terms of brothers, aunts, cousins since 2019, but the relationship is still good. We're grown. We're all grown. We keep in contact over the phone. But with children, so I have him. Now, if I were single, it would be a different thing in terms of the village. But I do have friends here as well. But I'm saying the children have a greater need. I'm clear. I'm rooted. He's rooted, grounded. If creator forbid at some point, or just a natural thing in life, at some point, more than likely, we won't transition at the same time. You know, there will be a separation at some point. But the other one of us is individually rooted and grounded in being African and in the African way. But our children, we're trying to root them and ground them, and they need to be surrounded by it.
And I agree, because, you know, it's just like, you know, when you think about the generations, because when we were growing up, our cousins were our first friends. And so we always had the family reunions and we were close knit. But as we started aging and people had started transitioning, you see the family kind of loosening up. And, you know, I still keep in touch with a few of my cousins regularly, but the other ones, it's like, okay, you know, I hadn't talked to them in a few years, where we used to see each other at least once a year. And I think that's just part of society too. I think we're just being disconnected in so many different ways now, that you can live next door to someone and don't even know who they are. You know, I try to make it a practice of speaking and talking with everyone on my street, you know, all the time, because I want to have that relationship. I don't mind my business when it comes to things that are going on, because how we can't afford to, as a people, to mind our business. We got to be in looking around and knowing what's going on, and you know, be aware of our surroundings all the time, because I'm not going to be that neighbor that says, nope, I'm a no. Yeah, they do some weird stuff. We want to say, you know, I didn't know that. I didn't know. I'm going to know. I try to be aware of my surroundings at all the time. And, you know, I have children on my street. So if I see them walking down the street, I'm watching them and making sure that they're being safe and, you know, and not being, you know, taken advantage of. That's just the way I am, because I want the same for my granddaughter. So, you know, I think we have to really, really get out of this mind your business mentality, because we are our brother and sister's keeper for sure.
But that, you know, that's the individualism of Western culture. It's all about me. So I don't have time for anybody else other than what you can do for me. If you're not doing something for me, you know, you're insignificant.
I'm really surprised. Just a brief statement. I was really surprised because we become so afraid of each other and so distant from each other. I was taking rolling the trash can out a few weeks ago, and there was a group of, there were maybe 9 guys from like maybe the 7th grade down to the 4th or the 3rd grade. And I said, you know, what's up, fellas? And they were in shock and so almost so excited for, you know, this old man. Every single one of them said something back.
Wow.
You know, and they were like looking at each other as they're walking, you know, not trying to not making fun of anything, but they were, look, oh wow, it's like, okay, we do talk, yes.
Right.
We might be surprised. We have brought up in this individualism where we are afraid, or we feel like somebody's exercising power over us if we speak first, you know, all kinds of insanity that helps to fragment us in service to Urugu.
Agree.
That's powerful.
Yes. So I'm going to stop because I could go on and on, but time is of the essence. So, you know, I just appreciate everything. Sister Naki, both books are in the same place.
Yes.
We'll post the
I'm going to share the link.
Yeah, share the link in the comments. And if you see the banner going across the screen, you can also make a donation to the Barutis who have invested so much time in our liberation. So donations are appreciated as well.
Absolutely, family.
And
Absolutely.
if we could talk about our conference just briefly.
I was just about to ask.
So we're inviting everyone to come to our annual Complementarity conference. It's the 9th one. Even though the Facebook pictures say 7th, that's because they're collages from previous years, but it's the 9th. We give thanks, but this is, and it is not for compliments only. So we really got to get a statement on our pages quick. It is for couples, but it's for everybody. Yes, and including teens. And Mama Mila, I heard you mention your son. We talked to the students here, so we have 4th grade and up, and
3rd graders.
Sometimes we have 3rd graders. We make an exception, but
I'm coming. I've already. I'll be there. Him too. If he's not with his dad, he'll be. My daughter as well. So that's important to me. That it is so important to me. When I tell you all, I don't want to prolong the show. I know I don't want to keep too much of your time, but the book was life-changing for me. I've discussed it with Sister Crystal, and same thing. I wanted it to be read not only by myself, but by the person who was considering me and I was considering. Let's to have that discussion is so important, because the way it's written, it is a conversation, step by step. How are we going to move in this way? And one of the most beautiful things, powerful and sincere parts is do the work. All you have to do is do the work. If you get out here and you're in places you shouldn't be in, you're doing work that is beneficial for the collective, but you're congregating and you're in places you shouldn't be in. Be where the work is, and that compliment typically will find you. So it's just powerful, family. Get the book, get the note series, get the books, come to the conference. What are the dates of the conference?
It's one day, Saturday, June 3rd, 4 to 7 p.m. It's going to be virtual. So wherever you are, you can attend. And that's 4 to 7 Eastern time.
We are there. We are there.
So couples and singles.
Okay.
As well as teens.
Okay.
Really, every year I'm asking parents, let your teens come, because we would, if it's something, we have our children in extracurricular activities, other things, preparing them for, if we want them to be a professional athlete, they're doing athletic camps, whatever. But if this is important, and it is one of the most important things we want them to embrace into adulthood. And we have a lot of our students, not long after their high school graduation, they're becoming fathers. Or, the daughter. So they need to know before they're not planning with these children, but these children are coming. They need to know about complementarity.
Yes.
So it's very important. We want everybody to come. But it just occurred to me, I should have also mentioned in terms of books, the book isn't devoted to relationships, but the Okotos, the Sankofa movement. It is like a Bible on African, being African-centered.
Okay.
Everybody needs a copy of that in your home. The main title is the Sankofa movement. Subtitle is right. Okay. Re-Africanization and the Reality of War. But the author's last name, Akoto, Akoto. If you Google Okoto, the Sankofa movement, you should be able to find it.
Yeah.
And they just had it reprinted
that's the name of the book too. Right. Yes, so the copies are available. It was reprinted.
And Ron Necron Men's. All of the books are listed on page 87.
Oh, it's in the bibliography. Okay.
Right. It's in page 87 of Baba's Complementarity.
Okay, great.
But there's a chapter in the Sankofa movement that specifically on relationship and gives a step-by-step guide to how it's traditionally done from introduction, yes, from all the way to marriage. So definitely, it's a good book that you should have, period. But then find that particular chapter, you know, when you're looking for information on establishing relationships.
And if you can't find a decently priced Sankofa movement, message me.
Okay.
I know a brother who sells them directly.
Oh, well, yes. Yes. So anything crazy online, no.
Because they'll be $200-$300. And I forget what they are, but it's in the 20s or 30s somewhere. It's not like way up there. And everywhere you go online, it'll be way up there.
Okay.
Okay.
That's important. And family, I'm going to type those up and put them in the description as well. So don't worry.
Oh, great.
You get it. You're going to get it. I'm writing it down now, and I'm going to go look at the book file. I'm going to give it to you. You're going to get it. Well, I just want to thank you both so much for coming on tonight and discussing complementarity and so much more. I know that we all got so much from it. There were so many comments. I didn't want to interrupt the flow by putting them on the screen, but many comments. And so thank you all for watching live now, you know, and participating. I saw several people saying that they were in tears. Some were joking about leaving a man for the toilet seat. They just went on and on. So it was interesting. Boy, that toilet seat, I tell you. So let me tell you, before we go, my dad used to always tell my mom, he said, well, I had to pick it up. Are you really gonna have this conversation every time? He was like, well, I gotta put it down. We just both doing some work. Whatever. So
and hopefully she could laugh about it, because that's going to be very important in a relationship. Some humor.
Absolutely. Oh, so important. So very important. So, but I thank you both. I want you all to stay on for a few minutes after I end the broadcast. But family, I'm going to go ahead and let you all go. I know you want to stay. I see, I'm getting the text messages too. Just like Sister Lisa, I don't know why people sometimes are scared to comment, but text message saying y'all are such a beautiful couple, such an inspiration. One of my friends, she's in her 50s. She said, I thought it was over, but I really feel like I need to get this book because I don't think it's over. This is
absolutely not. Absolutely not
to me. And I'm literally about to order every book on the website. So you order every book on the website. That's what we want. Order every book.
We give thanks.
Okay, absolutely. So I just, Mom and Bob, I thank you both so much. I'm honored.
And we want to say thank you for the invitation. We absolutely appreciate it.
For doing this work.
I watch what you all do. Y'all are beautiful to me and powerful. I just love to see us loving each other. And you all represent them so well. Y'all don't even understand. I think you do, but you don't. How much of an impact that is on especially for us, and always hearing the negative comments and go be with somebody else. And no, you all strictly talk about Africans for Africans, and that's what we need to hear, because that's what's going to heal us. Nothing else. Being with each other. So
and just quickly, the theme of the conference, African love is beautiful.
And it is. I need y'all to be there. It's virtual, so there's no excuse. I'm going to be there. My teams are going to be there. They have no choice, but they want to be, because I've already talked to them about it. So we're going to be there, family, and we want you to be there as well. Thank you all for tuning in. For those who will watch the broadcast later, thank you in advance for watching the replay. Please make sure to get your book orders. Again, I'm going to post those links in the description. And remember, family, it's all about health and wellness, Africans for Africans. Listen, if you remember nothing else, please focus on your wellness and know that nothing, absolutely nothing, tastes as good as being healthy feels. Until next time.
Ashe.
Abibifahodie.
Abibifahodie.
You got it.
I got to do it. Okay, gotcha.